All right, guys. So Bill Maher sat down with Ben Shapiro doing Shapiro's Sunday special, and they had a very, very, very interesting conversation. Right? It's always refreshing to see two people on completely opposite sides of the political aisle come together and to have a civil discussion about issues without arguing and yelling and carrying on and all the other stuff that we usually see on TV when it comes to political debates. It was actually a really good conversation. And one section of the conversation I want to talk about is the section of the conversation when they talk about 2024. And Bill Maher, surprisingly, or really unsurprisingly, considering the things he's been saying lately in regards to railing against the Democrats, basically says that if Trump runs in 2024, he could see Trump easily winning. Take a look.
He's going to run. Is he going to get the nomination, or is maybe your boy here, DeSantis, going to fight him?
I mean, the big problem for the Republicans is going to be whether anybody runs against him, because he's a giant wrecking ball. I mean, and if you run against Trump, you run the risk that he wrecks you so hard in the primary that you have no chance in the general. Right. And so that is the big question.
So what do you think will happen?
I mean, I think that if he runs, it's going to clear the field.
Right. Okay. So he's running
from
again.
From political analysis
point of view. I do too. So he's running again. Okay. So it's November of 2024. Mm-hmm. He loses just the way he did last time. Let's say that. He's running against, I don't know, say the Democrats come up with something.
They roll out the body of Joe Biden. And yeah, that's
a weekend at Bernie.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, I don't know. I wish I could say, well, they've got this guy in the wings and he's going to be great. I can't even think.
Yeah.
Of like who.
It's difficult.
Yeah. So I completely concede Trump could win.
The hologram of Barack Obama. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I suggested that he gay marry Biden, then Biden would win and he'd actually be president, although he'd be the first
like
lady.
Edith Wilson.
Right, exactly. Do one of those. But so I could see that Trump could actually win that election easily, especially if the Democrats keep doing the stuff they are doing to piss people off, like in schools, with all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what my theme has been, that yes, both parties have a lot to answer for. Again, I told you where my politics are in general. Okay, I'm not coming over to this side. I do think that Republicans are more dangerous. But what pisses people off with Democrats is so much closer to home. It's so much up close and personal. I mean, when you look at Ukraine, I mean, the Ukraine issue that he was impeached over, yes, I think it was an impeachable offense, absolutely. But to most people, it's like Ukraine. I mean, the Palin family working as a team couldn't find it on a map. That's where most Americans are. It's like, it's very far away. It doesn't really influence my life a lot. But when you have my kid coming home from school and saying, "Mommy, am I a racist?" And you're 5.
Yep.
You just learned the word. What do you? That's what I worry about with the Democrats. And in that scenario, Trump could win. But if he doesn't, if he loses, like, say, about the way he lost last time, not by a lot, but no, you think he's going to go gently into that night?
No, and I don't think it's going to matter.
All right. Yeah, I love that conversation. Just because it's productive, right? But make no mistake. I mean, Bill Maher is not some type of conservative or anything like that. And I think people got to mistaken Bill Maher when, he comes out here and he rags against Democrats and, conservatives come out here and applaud him for doing that. People are saying, oh, no, Bill Maher's not on our team. And I'm like, yeah, of course Bill Maher is not on our team, right? Of course he's not on our team, right? Bill Maher is on the left, but he ain't as far gone as those that are on the far left, right? He's just a liberal, right? He's not a leftist. He's just a liberal, okay? He's a sane liberal that I think still has some Trump derangement syndrome. But I think in this small clip right here, he's definitely spot on about Trump, right? And how I think that if Trump ran in 2024, he would easily win, in my opinion. Okay, but first, let's talk about the lead up to 2024, because they had a brief conversation about that as well, too, when it comes to Trump versus DeSantis. And I think Ben Shapiro is 100% right about the problem that the Republican Party is having right now with Trump, if you want to define it as a problem, is that there's an argument to be made that Ron DeSantis is more electable than Trump in the general election. Because I'm not going to lie to you guys. I mean, there are people on the left that purely will vote because they hate Trump. They don't give a damn about the economy doing well under Trump, border security, being respected on the world stage. They don't give a damn about any of that. They just hate Trump because they think he's a xenophobic, racist, homophobic bigot, right? That they will just vote against Trump because of that, okay? So with that being said, Ron DeSantis doesn't have that same type of hate, okay? So a lot of people, there's been debate on the right in regards to, okay, well, maybe DeSantis would be a better candidate in the general, and I actually agree with that. I think DeSantis would be a better candidate than Trump in the general. He's a more polished version of Trump. However, you got to win the primary, and the primary is not the general. In the primary, you have to appeal to people who are more conservative, right? Who are a little bit more right, right? More right than most of America, okay? And those people vehemently support Trump, right? And all of the CPAC polls, all of the primary polls that Republican parties had, Trump has just dominated. I don't think I've seen one poll where Ron DeSantis is actually beating Trump at any point, okay? Not to say that he can't, but I just haven't seen it. Trump still has a strong grip on the Republican Party. And with that being said, what Ben Shapiro was alluding to is exactly right. The problem is that anybody running against Trump can get pummeled so bad that they might lose in a general election. Trump can piss people off so bad in the base that they decide that, hey, we're just not going to vote for the Republican general election candidate because of how bad Trump damaged them in the primary, even if Trump loses, right? So that's why, when I talk about Ron DeSantis and him running against Trump, I'm like, yeah, I would like to see him run, but I also would not like to see him run because I don't want to see him get beat up that bad. I think that Trump would actually really beat up DeSantis. And the reason why is because DeSantis has kind of taken on this mini Trump brand that I'm not necessarily convinced is authentic as he makes it out to be. Okay, that doesn't mean he hasn't done a good job as governor. Doesn't mean that, the guy would make a great president. I think he would, but the whole mini Trump thing was something that is a recent construction for Ron DeSantis. And I think Trump, when it comes down to it, he would destroy DeSantis on that. He's like, listen, you're not a better version of me, right? I think that's what it come down to. And I think that would kind of expose DeSantis in some ways that I don't want to see happens to him, right? So in my ideal world, I would just let Trump run in 2024. If I'm anybody that's remotely aligned with Trump, obviously, the establishment part of the Republican Party, the McConnell wing of the Republican Party, they're going to run somebody, right? They're going to run somebody against Trump, and we'll see what happens there. But people like DeSantis that have hitched their wagon to Trump, I wouldn't run. I would just stay out of it, right, for the most part. And then that brings us to the general election. Because, again, Trump is projected to basically sweep the Republican primary. And if Biden is the Democrat nominee, right, if he's running again, the polls indicate right now, Wall Street Journal poll came out and said that it is tied, right, 45% to 45%. And to me, that's a little bit of a surprise, okay, because, Biden has done so bad, right, and the economy is in shambles. We're embarrassment on the world stage, border crisis, crime. I just don't see how any sane American can go to the polls and continue to vote for Biden when we have all this stuff currently going on in his administration. But again, this is what I was alluding to back when it comes to the whole anti-Trumpers, right? There's people on the left who literally will vote against their best interest simply because they don't like Trump. But I don't think that effect is going to be as much as it was in 2020 and 2024 because we'll be so far removed from 2020 and things have been so bad. I think a lot of people that just hate Trump, they might just decide to sit out and say, you know what, I really don't like Biden. And I really don't like Trump either. So I'm just going to sit out, which is an advantage for Trump, right? That's 100% an advantage for Trump. And that's why I think that those polls are not necessarily exactly accurate. I think they definitely favor Biden more than they otherwise should be. Because at the end of the day, Bill Maher brought up some good points about how the Democrats are basically too woke on certain issues that hit close to home. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But what really matters is how the economy is doing, right? Most presidential elections are decided by how the economy is doing. If the economy is doing great, then the incumbent / the party that's in power, they'll stay in power. If the economy is not doing great, then they'll lose, right? A new party will take over. The economy basically decides elections, okay? You can make a good argument that the outcome of the 2020 election, COVID played a huge factor in that in the sense that it did kind of wreck the economy, right? And the otherwise great economy that Trump had, COVID kind of disrupted that. I think otherwise, if it wasn't for COVID, I think Trump would still be president. There's no doubt in my mind. So when it comes to Bill Maher's point about Democrats being so bad on issues that really hit close to home, I think is 100% correct on that as well too, right? Because what Democrats are doing is that they're targeting kids, they're targeting children. They're currently fighting for things that I don't understand why in the hell would you fight for, because even people that are center left, especially moderates, ain't gonna get on board with, right? Who's gonna get on board with allowing children to castrate themselves? Okay, who's gonna get on board with allowing sexualized education in kindergarten through third grade? Who's gonna get on board with allowing biological men to compete against biological women in sports, right? Boys competing against girls. Nobody with a sane mind and some common sense is gonna get on board with that, right? That includes people that are center left. There's a lot of people in this country that are center left that are just not that far left on some of these issues that the Democrats are pushing, right? Whether it comes to that or when it comes to the whole race thing, okay? Trying to incorporate critical race theory in schools. That's what Bill Maher is alluding to. The left claims, oh, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. But we have parents that are experiencing this stuff personally and are having their kids come home and say, hey, mom and dad, I'm being taught this, I'm being taught that. Am I racist? And they're getting it from the classroom. But the Democrats are saying, no, it doesn't exist. And you saw the outcome of the Democrats doing that. Look at Virginia. Democrats should have won Virginia. They were projected to win Virginia. However, the Republicans won Virginia. Glenn Youngkin won because the Democrats literally told the American people that parents shouldn't have a say in education. And all the moderate suburban housewives came out and said, you know what? I'm not necessarily sure if I agree with that. Right? I'm not necessarily sure if I agree with that. Education is important. I want to say. Okay? But again, what Bill Maher here is alluding to is that the authoritarian, far-left, progressive social agenda of the Democrat Party is going to be their Achilles heel. Okay? It's going to be their Achilles heel. And not only that, in my opinion, I think that the economy as well, too, is going to play in a factor. And with those two things combined, yeah, I do think Trump could easily win. Even though the polls may not indicate it right now, I think if time continues to progress and things continue to get worse and worse and worse, I'd be hard-pressed to see Trump losing in 2024 to Biden. That's just my opinion. So I thought that this conversation was productive. I encourage people to watch, the rest of it if you want to watch it. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.